Hello and welcome to Band in a Box 2014. This exciting new release has over 50 cool new features, and we've also added 101 new RealTracks, 30 new MIDI super tracks, 2 new artist performance sets, and 12 new high-quality, high-Q sounds. The thing you'll notice right away is the most highly anticipated new feature, the great new user interface. In this video, we'll explore all the new features with this interface. We'll also check out some of our other very exciting new features, like the new UserTracks feature. This now allows you, the user, to make your own audio styles, very much like RealTracks. Just record yourself playing, whether it's guitar, bass, piano, or any instrument you can think of, and Band in a Box can then take what you've recorded and play it over any chord progression you can enter into Band in a Box, just like it does with RealTracks. First though, we'll check out some of the exciting new RealTracks. Right now we're listening to the New Orleans boogie RealTracks styles, with smoking piano and solid bass guitar and drums. And all of these RealTracks are included in RealTracks Set 190, New Orleans Boogie. The RealTracks sets that everyone is talking about are the Jazz Pole Winner sets, and for good reason. The musicians here are world-class legends, having made names for themselves over many years of performing and recording, and having been honored with various awards such as Downbeat Magazine's Readers and Critics polls. Right now we're listening to a rhythm section of bassist Ron Carter, master pianist Kenny Barron, and drum great Louis Nash. And they're backing up 3 great soloists. First of all, Phil Woods on alto sax. Phil Woods is one of the world's greatest jazz saxophonists. He's also very well known in the pop rock world for his famous solo in Billy Joel's Just the Way You Are. Gary Smulian is on baritone sax here and has been named Player of the Year several times in the critics and readers polls for Downbeat, Jazz Times, and Jazz Journalists Association. And on guitar, Pat Martino, a beloved musician who is also regarded as a living legend. This particular reel style uses all of these musicians, with the rhythm section playing throughout, and Phil Woods is soloing where C and D are designated in the chord chart, Pat Martino solos where E and F are designated in the chart, and Gary Smulian solos where G and H are designated in the chord chart. And all of the music you're hearing was created simply by typing in these chords, picking this style, setting the tempo, and setting the part markers to determine who solos, and then pressing play. Band in a Box does the rest. Everything you're hearing, including these great soloists by these master artists, were created based on these chords. And if I changed them, everything would be regenerated to match the new progression. For example, I'll stop here. I'll change the key, and here is a new feature when changing keys. This box now shows all the keys in one screen rather than the previous version where you needed to scroll through a list. And you can either change the song key without transposing it here, or change the key and transpose it here. And I'll change this to G minor, and I'll change a few of the chords at the beginning. B flat major 7 at bar 1, E flat major 7 at bar 2, D half diminished at bar 3, G7 at bar 4, C half diminished at bar 5, and B7 at bar 6. And when I press generate and play, everything, including Phil Woods' solo, is now playing the new changes in the new key. I mentioned the new Graphical User Interface, or GUI, earlier. I'll go over this in more detail later in the video, but for now I'll point out the improvements to the chord chart. The default font is now this cool jazz font, a big improvement on the standard Windows font that was used in previous versions. The part markers also now have a much more modern, slick look to them, and you'll notice that the color of the bar numbers in between are now also colored to indicate the different sections, using the same color as the part marker. As part of our bonus RealTracks sets, which will be available until December 31st, 2013, we're including with every new purchase or upgrade of Band in a Box this set of string quartet RealTracks. This is a real string quartet with real cello, viola, and 2 violins. You can use them as an ensemble, as you're hearing them here, or you can also access the individual strings. This is an incredibly versatile set, and here the strings are being used in a pop setting. And here they're used in a more stripped-down, organic setting with just a piano. We also have with this new release a new set of pop horns, done in a very similar manner to the string quartet. And here we have just the horns along with the string quartet for an almost symphonic effect. And let's check out some other great new RealTracks. We have country equivalents to the Jazz Poll winners with our Country Award Winners set. Here we're listening to 2 of the styles from this set, with Rob Ickes on resonator guitar and John Jarvis on piano. Rob Ickes is the most awarded instrumentalist in the history of the International Bluegrass Music Association Awards, having won Instrumental Performer of the Year award for his resonator guitar playing 13 times to date. And whether you know it or not, you've been hearing John Jarvis's piano on rock, pop, and country records for decades. As a teenager, he played on sessions with Ringo Starr, Diana Ross, John Mellencamp, The Miracles, and many others before joining Rod Stewart's band, contributing the piano tracks to such hits as Hot Legs, Tonight's the Night, and You're in My Heart. And here you can have both of these award-winning musicians backing you up on your own song. Let's check out another new aspect of the new GUI, the mixer. You now have all of the information regarding volume, pan, reverb, etc. in front of you all the time. Whereas in previous versions you could only see this information for one instrument at a time on the main screen, and in an awkward way at that. You now have sliders along with the number values. There are mute, solo, and freeze buttons available. For example, if I particularly like this resonator guitar solo, I can freeze it and then it will stay exactly the same even when I close the song and return to it later. There there are now VU meters, not just a master meter, but individual meters for each track. And you have control over the overall level in two ways. One as a mastered level that will stay where you put it for all songs, and another that gets saved and loaded with individual songs, if those individual songs need just a little bit more tweaking. There are also tabs to show plugins and patches. And we've moved the pianos to this area. In the past, there was just a large piano covering the whole main screen, and it was often unclear what instrument was where. Now they're each on their own track, so it's easy to distinguish the piano part and the resonator guitar part. The through and audio tracks are generally used less frequently, so they're not always visible but can easily be brought back. Another new feature is that tracks without MIDI have the option of displaying slashes instead of blank staffs or rests. Here there are notes on the piano track, so those notes display. But on the melody track there's nothing, so I have it set to display slashes. And the same goes for the lead sheet, as well as any printed sheets. In addition to our new RealTracks, we also have many new MIDI SuperTracks. These are very similar to RealTracks in that they are actual performances by real musicians, but because they're MIDI, you have complete control over the patches, the choice of synth or VST plugin, and you also have creative control over the music itself, right down to the individual notes that you can freely edit. This is pianist John Jarvis again, playing a cool, funky 60s groove on a vintage electric piano. This electric piano sound is part of High Q Set 2. High Q are the band-in-a-box high-quality sounds that work with iCape Multimedia's sample tank. In addition to this vintage piano, we also have other electric pianos, analog synth sounds, and exotic instruments such as shakuhachi and koto. We've made MIDI SuperTracks to showcase all of these sounds in various sets. Another great aspect of the new GUI is the grouping of similar functions. There are now categories that make it easier to find what you're looking for. The transport area has everything to do with playback control. All of the typical transport controls are here, like the play buttons, stop and pause, and record MIDI and audio, as well as the jukebox and conductor, which are both related to playback. Under Views, the 4 main screen views are now all together here. There's a small break, and then here are the floating windows, lead sheet, guitar, etc. Here, everything to do with working with the individual tracks are grouped together. And here are other tools that are frequently used. And of course, anything to do with saving and loading files is up at the top. There's also an enhanced new drop area, which we'll explore later in the video. Another new feature is legato strings. I'm going to add one of our older MIDI SuperTracks strings to demonstrate this. I'll filter the list by strings, and then I'll pick this pop string style, which is around the same tempo as our song. What this feature does is for MIDI strings, whether it's in the old school MIDI styles or the new MIDI SuperTracks, Any instance where the same note is repeated immediately after the previous one, it's turned into one long note instead, making a much more consistent, pleasing sound. The best way to see this in action is to look at it in the piano roll. Again, it's easy to find the piano roll because it's grouped in the Views area. Now, the chords change from A to D to F sharp minor in the first 3 bars. In previous versions, this part would likely have had notes of the chords restating themselves on every instance of a new chord. But now you'll see that, for example, this A note is used on the A chord, the D chord, and the F sharp minor chord. And instead of the note playing each of those 3 times, it's turned it into one long note. And same with this F sharp, which is held over the D and F sharp minor chords. And I'll play a little bit of that by itself. Nashville legend Brent Mason has always been a Band-in-a-Box favorite, and we've added to our collection of great Brent Mason RealTracks with these tasty nylon guitar background styles. The background styles are intended to be soloistic, but subtle enough to work well under a singer or even another soloist. So this would be a perfect style to use for your own song over which you could record your vocals. Any chord progression you want to enter can be played. Also with Band-in-a-Box 2014, we've made 2 new artist performance sets. Again, Brent Mason has recorded some beautiful tracks in a variety of grooves, and these are tailor-made for learning. You can view the notation and tab in the notation window, as well as on the on-screen guitar fretboard. This tune has Brent playing along with our New Orleans swing and pop RealTracks. And here's a Western swing. And of course, you can loop sections. And slow down to really get the licks under your fingers. We've also added support for the fret-light guitar system. If you use this Brent Mason Artist Performance set in conjunction with the fret-light guitar, you'd actually see the notes Brent was playing right at your fingertips. We also have a great set of bluegrass artist performances by award-winning Nashville musician Andy Leftwich. We have many bluegrass standards with Andy playing mandolin. And of course, these too can be slowed down to make them easier to learn. And we have many tunes where Andy is playing fiddle. one of the most anticipated new features is UserTracks. Band-in-a-Box customers have been enjoying the wonderful and always expanding collection of RealTracks for years, and many people have asked for ways to make their own similar audio styles. We've answered the call with UserTracks. This is an incredibly simple way to get your own music playing back in Band-in-a-Box in the same way as the RealTracks. Now your own music tracks can also play over any chord progression you enter into Band-in-a-Box. I'll give you a brief idea of how easy it is to do. I recorded a short file playing the accordion, following a chord chart, and you can use any chord progression you want for this original recording. And the result is that I have this WMA file. You can use WAV files too, but if you compress it to WMA, it's smaller. And I have this Band-in-a-Box SGU file, which is set to the same tempo as what I recorded and has the same chords entered in it. As I said, the chord progression can be whatever you like, and it can be as short as 1 or 2 bars long, or it can be as long as over an hour of recorded material over several files. But even just recording a couple of bars of your instrument will give you a working UserTrack style in Band-in-a-Box. You can record the audio right in Band-in-a-Box, or in RealBand, or really in any digital audio workstation such as Pro Tools, Logic, Reaper, Cubase, as long as the chord progression you're playing is also entered in the SGU Band-in-a-Box song. Now both files have the same name, that's important, and so all I have to do is put them in the UserTracks folder. That folder is in your main Band-in-a-Box folder, in my case CBB, then in the RealTracks subfolder, and then in there the UserTracks subfolder. Once here, you make a new folder, and that will be the name of your UserTracks style. I'll call this my first accordion UserTracks. I then just move my files into that folder, and that's it. Now let's try this out in Band-in-a-Box. Before I try the accordion, first I'll want to find some instruments that it will work well with. So I'll find a Band-in-a-Box style that has a similar groove and tempo. Choosing a style is now much easier with the new GUI, with all functions related to picking styles now present in a single area. If you click on the bottom part of this button, it gives you options for what method you'd like to go about choosing a style. All of these were present in previous versions of Band-in-a-Box, but were in different places all over the Band-in-a-Box screen, making it difficult to maintain smooth workflow. But here they all are in one place. There's the classic style picker, band styles with the best real styles, which are all RealTracks styles, in a quick and easy menu, as well as other options. And the check mark tells you which of these will be used if you press the top default part of the button. In my case, the classic style picker. You can set the default here. The song button works the same way, with all of the various ways of loading songs all in one place. So as we saw, for my style button, the default is set to the classic style picker, so I can just press this button without having to go to a submenu, and I'm now in the style picker. Now I'm looking for a style that will work well with my accordion, and I recorded the accordion with a medium slow swing 16ths groove in mind. So I'll filter my list by that. Medium slow tempo of around 75, which is where I recorded the accordion, swing 16ths groove. And here now are a bunch of styles that match that search. Now another great new feature in Band-in-a-Box 2014 is instant preview of styles, RealTracks, and RealDrums. In the past, you've been able to listen to samples of the various styles, but it would open in a separate player and would take much longer to get going, which could really interrupt your workflow. Now, however, it's almost instant. I can either control it with the play and stop buttons, or you can just double-click on the style itself. So here are some smooth jazz samples. And they have a swing 16ths groove, medium slow tempo. But I want more of a pop groove, so I'll keep listening. And I'll try another. And for my song, I think I'll pick this northern rock with gritty electric guitar style. Now, just one last thing before I actually add the accordion. I'll enter a few chords in the key of C. C, A minor, F, G. I'll repeat those 4 bars by typing K4. D minor, E minor, F, G, D minor, G, and C. And now I'll press the UserTracks button to get my accordion UserTracks. There are also other ways to access the UserTracks, such as right-clicking on the individual tracks. But I'll use the button. I'll put this on the piano track since that's not currently being used. And because I named my folder My First Accordion UserTracks, that appears here. So I'll select it, press play, which if you've added new chords or made any changes works the same as generate and play. And now we're hearing my first accordion UserTracks. Earlier we showed you some of Gary Smoolian's Barry sax playing as part of the Jazz Poll Winners groups. We also have a set where Gary kills it on blues Barry sax. And here we're listening to our Texas blues rock rhythm section with Gary soloing over these blues changes. And I'm going to use this song to demonstrate the enhanced drop area. This is where you can drag and drop individual tracks or mixes to prepare files, which in turn can be dragged to other programs. In the past, you did have control over the types of files you got, but it involved constantly changing your settings and could be confusing at times. We now made that simpler by having different areas to the drop station. So with a single drag, you can choose to create WAV, M4A, WMA, or MIDI files. So for example, say I wanted to create a WAV file of just the sax so I could drag it into another digital audio workstation. The sax is on the strings track, so I grab that and drag it to the drop area. As I move it around the drop area, different portions highlight, and so I drop it on the area that says WAV. It takes just a few moments to create the file, and when it's ready, it changes to green. I entered DAW plugin mode, which just makes Band in a Box a small floating window so I can see what's behind it. And you can see I have Real Band 2004 there. I can then drag this to one of the tracks, and we can see the sax track is there now. Or say I wanted an M4A mix of this song to send to a friend. But we'll say my friend is a bass player and I want to send him a mix without the bass so we can practice along to it. I'll mute the bass and then drag master onto the M4A area. It's now green, indicating the file is ready. So maybe I'd like to easily get this to him via Dropbox. Right at the drop station, I can copy this file to my designated Dropbox folder and open that folder. There's the file. And as you can hear, it's the full mix of the band without the bass as we wanted. And I can select Share Dropbox Link, which copies a URL link of this audio file to my clipboard, which I can then paste in an email and send off to my friend. The last thing I'll show you is dropping onto the MIDI area of the drop station. Now, if we had a MIDI track, I could drop that here to get a MIDI file of that track. But you can also do that with RealTracks that have real charts. The sax, even though it's an audio track, has real charts, which is how it shows you the notes in notation. I can drag the sax to the MIDI area of the drop station, and I now have a MIDI version of that sax track. That can then be dragged into another DAW, just like the audio, or it can be dragged into notation programs, such as Finale or Sibelius. There are many other features, many of which are shown in more detail in our rapidly growing collection of short tutorial videos. For example, band button enhancements. Rendering can now automatically set rendered files to mono or stereo based on the source. Acid loops are now supported. And the iPhone, iPad Band-in-a-Box app now has transpose for non-concert instruments, and getting songs to the app is now even easier with added Dropbox and Google Drive support. We hope you enjoy all the great music and great features in Band-in-a-Box 2014. Have fun!